Oh, sorry for that. Okay, so officially, hello everyone. My name is Alicja Owdziej, and I'm Chief Adjudicator of this year edition of Polish School Debating Championship. I used to do that in the past. Maybe I'm not used to, but I just did it in the past because it was not my habit. And I was also a part of national team in 2019, so I know where you are and I know what the feeling is. And before we'll dive into specifics on about like what this workshop is going to be about, I want you to give you some warnings before we'll start. The first warning is that I'm sick, and this is why we need to hold this workshop today. And this is the reason why it was not held yesterday. And this might be the reason why there are not so many of you, and that's absolutely fine, because it's going to be mainly a lecture, but also I intended to do this workshop with this assumption that not everyone have ever debated before, and that's absolutely fine, but we want to make sure that you have the same chances as everyone else. And this is why I devoted this workshop mostly to rules and judging criteria and things like that, that simply will somehow hopefully clarify for what you are judged for and how to win this debate. And this is essential, I guess, for you. And yeah, the second thing is just, if you already know those stuff, it's still good to, get some sort of short revision before. And hopefully I will be able to answer all of your questions. So please don't be ashamed of asking me about anything. We have time. There are only 3 of you. Hopefully someone else will join, but yeah, girls, feel free to ask me about anything you want. And yeah, I think we can start. Okay, so now, yeah. Oh, no. It's return with a shield, do not own a shield, rules, tools, and answers to nagging questions about the Word School style format. Why I decided to devote this workshop for rules and tools and answers, it's simply because I heard from previous workshoppers and coaches that there were some issues that not everyone is familiarized with the rules. And, something that I want to start my workshop with is sort of a very important reminder that debating is the sport. It means that there are specific rules, there are specific techniques that will make you win a debate or lose a debate. And it's not just, I'm not going to be your judge and just think, oh, this argument was more persuasive because I believe it was more persuasive. There are specific guidelines for us as judges, what we are looking for, and this is the knowledge I want to share with you during this workshop. Yes, so debates are neither won by the smartest speakers nor by the most talented speakers. Obviously, it matters. Obviously, your personal knowledge matters. Obviously, your, I don't know, rhetorical skills matters. But the most important skill and the most important knowledge you can have before the tournament will start is that you need to be able to well organize your thoughts, to approach debates methodologically. And it is just another sport. It means that you need to learn the rules and the technique, and this is what we are going to do during this workshop. And now for the short warm-up, we'll do a very short quiz, extremely short quiz. And the way we'll do this, I want you will see the question, and then you will see 3 or 4 possible answers. And I want you to type in the answer on the chat as quickly as possible. Okay? Can we make it? Everyone is good. Okay with that? Can you, like, I don't know, make some sort of emoji or turn on your microphone?
After every question, we type an answer, or all answers at one time we send to you?
So after each question, you type in an answer, and then we'll discuss answers. Okay, great. So the first question is, which of the listed roles is not part of the task or rather possibilities of a reply speaker? Okay, and now the tricky part is that, okay, B. Róża, Nina, are you there? Okay, we have a different answer. And Róża? Okay, we will not wait any longer. Róża, you can join us anytime you want to. So yeah, the correct answer for this question is answer B. So Martyna was right. And this is very important thing that I know not everyone knows actually. So the reply speaker can provide a holistic overview of team cases and responses. And it's actually the main role of the reply speaker. So this is the time you cannot present any sort of a new material. New examples and new illustrations, as long as they are consistent with examples that were already used by your team, that's absolutely fine. Okay, this is not counted as a new material in any way, but new analysis and new logical links, this is new material probably. Comparing the cases of both teams, so doing so-called bias adjudication, this is actually also something that is very much expected from you. So being a reply speaker is basically being me, but you already know the verdict, you already know the call, and you need to present for me your team's arguments in a way that, you know, it's biased. It means that it's, you know, you somehow justify the verdict for me, and you are saying why your team was stronger in that particular debate than the other team. So this is basically the same what the answer A, yes. So providing a holistic overview means basically that you are showing me what your team has done in that particular debate and why it is a winning in this particular debate. But there is a trick, yes, so this speech is only 4 minutes long. It means that your entire time, because this team is twice as short as other speeches, is entirely protected. It means that the other team cannot ask any sort of POIs, so points of information during that time. It's absolutely protected. There are no POIs allowed for you. Okay, the next question, I'm sorry for that, because I cannot see a chat if I'm using a whole screen presentation. The second question is, can a third speaker introduce a new material? Answer A, yes. Answer B, yes, but only if it has been announced by the first speaker. C, no, they cannot introduce any new material, including new examples, new analysis to existing cases. Answer, yeah, so B. And Nina, are you going to answer this one or not? Oh, sorry, Martyna. Yeah, no, I got all the answers. Okay, so yeah, you are right. The first speaker can introduce new material, but it has to be announced by the first speaker, okay? So please remember, in your teamwork, it is crucial that your the first member of your team will say something like, in this particular debate, we are going to argue why obligatory voting will enhance, I don't know, will enhance civil society in our country. And I, as a first speaker, will present this argument. The second speaker will introduce this argument, and third speaker will also introduce separate new substantive argument, and it will be called blah blah. Okay, I hope that's clear. The third question, which of these principles correctly describes the POI's guidelines? Okay, I know it's quite extensive, so I will read it for you. Answer A, the speaker must stand up, raise one hand, the other hand should be located on the back of the head, so something like that, and signal the willingness to say POIs by saying sir, ma'am. Point of information can only be given as an assertion point. And answer C, the first and the last minute is so-called protected time. The other team may not ask a question during the protected period. I'm waiting for your answer. Okay, so C, and C. Okay, you are right. This is somehow a clarification for folks who are debating in Oxford style, because I know that but I'm not sure. There are many different styles of debating, and there is one style in which point of information can only be given as an assertion, as a statement, as a point, because the point refers to that. But it is not true for this particular format. It's very much similar to British parliamentary debating style. You can ask either a question, or you can clarify something, and you can, I don't know, say a statement, counter example. There are many different things in which you can use point of information, but it can only last for 15 seconds, no longer. So please write down before you will ask POI. And the correct answer is answer C. The first and the last minute is so-called protected time. Yeah, and this is true for the first, second, and third speaker. During the reply speeches, there are no POIs at all. Shortly referring to the answer A, the speaker must stand up and raise one hand. So doing this, it is actually a very traditional way of asking POIs, because like debating as a sport is coming from British Parliament, and during that time many people had wigs, so you know, those artificial hairs, and this is why one hand was located on the back, because they were like holding their wig. And yeah, this is the traditional way of asking questions, and you can, if you will be qualified to the national team and you will go to some other schools tournament in your life, you can see that many teams are doing this actually, and it is very much a tradition that they are saying like sir, mom, when they want to ask the POI. It is, I don't know, I think it's a cool way of asking POIs, but it's absolutely not obligatory. Okay, and the last question. Sorry. Who can provide the last speech? Yes, the reply is the first speaker, the second speaker, the third speaker, or the fourth member of the team. Okay, and we are waiting for one more answer. Okay, I think we can just go to know what is the correct answer. Yeah, the correct answer for this question is answer A and B. So either the first speaker or the second speaker can provide the reply speech. It cannot be done by the third speaker. And during one debate, although your team can be bigger, so you can have up to 5 members in your team that can participate in preparation time, but they cannot help you during the debate. So even if you have a fourth member of the team, this person cannot simply participate in the debate. Therefore, it must be done by either the first speaker or the second speaker. Okay, we ended up our quiz, and now we are going to the first part of this workshop, so boring but necessary stuff about the rules of the World Schools style format. Actually, I can see that you know it quite well, but still there's some sort of a necessity to clarify some rules. And this is what we are going to do now. I think it will take for us up to, like, I don't know, I think less than half an hour. But yeah, coming to the basic rules and speakers' roles. So each debate comprises 8 speeches delivered by 2 teams of 3 members presenting propositions and opposition side. So during the tournament, when you have prepared motion, there will be some sort of an announcement room, and this is how it is called. So the main room in which every participant is gathered simply, and there will be me and Ignacy, because we are responsible for the motions. And for prepared motions, you will just see the so-called draw. So this is somehow a table in which everyone can see whether they are proposition or opposition, and who is going to judge you. I don't know if you know any judges during this tournament, but yeah, hopefully it will tell you something about who is going to judge you. And this is basically how you are going to know whether you are going prop or op in a given debate. The same things goes with the impromptu rounds, but the difference is that during the prepped motions, so the first round and the third round, you will have 15 minutes to somehow clarify your ideas and prepare for particular side. Yes, so you forgot about what you have prepared for the op, but you are, for example, going to devote those 15 minutes to, somehow clarify. So what is our main line? And I don't know, just to clarify your position. And it's only 15 minutes before the round will start. Okay, so you have a time to go to the room, and yeah, that's basically it. But before the impromptu round, you have an hour, and during this hour, you will have times to prepare to the motion. You will know this motion an hour before the debate will start. You cannot use any sort of extra materials to help. So it means you cannot use your telephone. But what you can do is to have some sort of, this is called a case file. So if you have anything printed, if you have, I don't know, geographic book or something like that, it is allowed to use it during your preparation time, okay? But you cannot use any sort of online resources. And here you go with speakers' roles. And I decided, because I know there was some trouble with that we are going to focus our workshop also on what is the particular role of the first speakers. And I will give you some examples about that, and maybe we'll have time to do a short exercise and a short drill. But the reason why I decided to focus only on first speakers is that the second speaker of each side, and firstly, the second speaker, their main responsibility is simply to provide substantive arguments. And I believe it was covered by Radek's workshop about crafting arguments together. And also on that, there are so many resources online. Seriously, you can literally just type into Google how to make an argument in that particular style, or even, style doesn't matter. It's simply in competitive debating. You can listen to debates that are accessible online. And this is an excellent resource. So I don't believe we need to spend time on that. And the second role of second speakers is to defend arguments and also to respond to other arguments. And this is also the role of third speakers. So basically how to engage with other team. And this is excellently covered by Marianna Wesołowska workshop that is available on our Facebook group. I hope everyone watched it because this is an essential thing in Word School style. It puts a lot of a lot of attention simply on how good you are in responding to other team. This is crucial for you to know and familiarize yourself before the tournament will start. So please watch it. And this is the reason why we're not going to focus on that particular issue during this workshop, okay? The same goes with reply speaker, who just needs to somehow clarify in what way teams were clashing with each other and provide this holistic overview of a debate. Okay, Martina, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about what we can bring into improv prep rounds. We can bring a map. Can we bring an encyclopedia or no?
Yes, of course. Everything what is printed is fine. You cannot use simply online resources, okay?
Yeah.
And
thanks.
Do not use the help of your teacher or your coach or anyone else that is not a member of your team. And that are your limitations. Okay, so coming back, basically this is the reason why we are going to focus on first speakers particularly, but we are going to do this later on. Firstly, rules, just rules. Okay, how exciting, more basic rules. So 8 minutes per speech, I think that's quite clear, and 4 minutes per reply speaker. Summary speeches can only be given by one of the first two speakers from each team. Speakers speak in alternating order, starting with the proposition, except for the reply speeches, sorry, which is first delivered by oppositions. Yes, so you can see here this alternating order. So the first speaker of the proposition, then the first speaker of the opposition, and you go this way up to the reply speakers, because the first speech is, firstly, the speech is delivered by a reply speaker of the opposition side, later by the proposition side. Okay, I hope that's clear. And this is something that also will be somehow governed by your main judge during the debate, so don't worry about that too much. No communication with the coach or other teams is allowed during the preparation of the tournament. So this is something that I already told you. The first speaker can bring forward new material only if it was already announced by the first speaker. Note, new examples or new analysis, that is new logical links, are not should not be considered as a new material. So your judge should not penalize you for that. Protected time, the first and the last speech, a minute of the speech, this is protected time. And don't offer POIs for reply speakers as well. Also, the other note is that points of information should last at max, like 15 seconds. And it is also something that your main judge during the debate will take care of. So don't worry about that, okay? You have a right to refuse POIs. So you will not be penalized if you will just say, no, thank you, I will not take your point of information. Just don't be rude, and just you don't have to say anything like, oh, I would love to take a point of information from you, but unfortunately I don't have time for that. It is all right to just show it by your hands that you are not going to accept the particular point of information, but in that particular format, it is very much welcomed, and it is rewarded if you will take any sort of point of information. Yes, so there is, like, you must accept at least one point of information. But obviously, sometimes it happens that the other team simply will not offer for you any sort of point of information. And then it is also the responsibility of the judge to consider when and how many points of information were offered. And it is also something that, is very much up to how the debate is simply going. And like, points of information also should be spread out consistently throughout the entire speech. So you should have a time to, make a strategic decision when you are going to accept or refuse to take the point of information. There is one more note that is not written down here, but it's also very important. What is the most strategic time for you to take point of information? Any ideas? No? Okay, so I will tell you then. So guys, I would say that the most strategic time to take the point of information is after you will end up your first argument. So I don't know what exactly you are doing with Radek, because there are many different ways in which you can structure your arguments. But basically, when you feel that you provided a statement, so the general name for your argument, you provided logical premises to this statement, so why the statement is true and why the statement is important, you provided examples, and you feel like you presented your final conclusion of this argument, then probably it's the best time for you to accept the POI. But there is one exception. I believe the exception is when you are the first speaker of your side, and when you are presenting your model or your general framework for the debate, and the other team wants to, give you some sort of clarification that they disagree with your framework of the motion, of your definitions, or anything like that. This is also a very strategic time to accept the POI, because it is essential for the rest of the debate probably, and it's very much rewarded in this in one of the criteria in which we will dive into later. Okay, so now criteria. So what exactly are criteria that you are judged for? And I believe this is essential information for you. I don't know whether you know that, because you do not have an access to adjudicator guide, but I want to share this information with you. And it's also accessible online, but it's simply not shared on our event. So you are marked for style, and it's 40% of your final mark. Content is also 30%, and strategy is 20%. And now I will explain to you what does it mean. Okay, so here you got adjudicator guide for this year edition. And the first, oh, sorry for that. You can see my Google document, I hope. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you, Martina. Okay, so first thing first, content. Content deals basically with what is being presented. And what is important for you for this particular category, that is, I think, the most basic one and the most intuitive one, is all the content of your arguments, of your refutations, engagement, in other words, points of information, definitions. Yes, so here you are judged for the quality of your analysis. So how persuasive is your argument in regards to the logical links, to logical premises behind your arguments, and, for example, evidence presented. Yes, whether they are credible, relevant, whether they are proved as well. Yes, whether they are representative. All the things that simply refers to the content of your arguments are here. Also, very important thing is that debating is not about giving me some sort of pros and cons in a vacuum. You need to be very, very responsive to the other side, to the other team's arguments. So here you also have one of the criterion is accurate grasp of opponent's arguments and quality of responses. Yes, this is essential for you to focus on. Don't forget that you are debating against someone. Just do not spend your entire speech on simply proving your point. It is essential simply to engage with the other side. Yes, and the actual content of POIs. And now we are going to strategy. That is, in my opinion, the least intuitive category. So it is very much similar to the content, and this is why most of the debates are going to be judged on those two criteria. I mean, they are going to be judged on all of three criteria, but something that is extremely essential is that content plus strategy equals 60% of the final mark. It means that it gives you an advantage to simply be a winning team on what you are saying and not on how you are saying. But obviously style also matters, and oftentimes content and strategy are kind of similar. Then the style is also something that may matters, but basically most of the judges are going to give you their justification based on those two criteria. So strategy deals with why is content being set and has been selected. And this is very hard to grasp if you do not have an experience in debating, but still you can have some sort of a general taste what it is about. So here, this criterion is more whether you read your motion correctly. Yes, so whether you have identified what this motion should be about, what is the most important group in this debate, what is the most important argument, I don't know, a problem in this debate. So it is more about your technical skills on reading motions, not only presenting for me a logically coherent argument. So here you have, whether team demonstrates an understanding of the key issues of the debate, whether you have reasonable interpretation of the motion, whether your team stance is consistent in the debate. Here you got also making tactical decisions about responding to a policy plan, how you are prioritizing arguments. It is also about time management. So whether you are spending most of your time on the most important arguments in the debate, for example. Whether you are willing to accept POIs is also something that matters for this particular criteria. And how do you select, use example stories, rhetorical devices, blah, blah. But yeah, that's basically it. And the last criterion is about style, whether this criterion deals with how content is being presented. So it's more about manner and something that is essential for you. Don't worry about your proficiency. Don't worry about your accent. That's absolutely fine. That's also fine on international tournaments. It is not just our criterion. It's generally how, you know, judges are approaching this format all around the world. So if you use clear and simple language, it is absolutely fine, because it's also something that helps you to be more persuasive. And how I want you to approach this particular criterion, because for me it was terrifying. I know that I was quite confident about my logical skills and my critical thinking, and I had some sort of a huge experience in debating before. But I was terrified when I heard about all those things like body language, eye contact, and effective use of gestures. It is so subjective that it may be terrifying and overwhelming. But something that I want you to be very careful, maybe not careful, but mindful, is that this particular note that no single superior style exists, regardless of your personal preference. Yes, so I would say that the most useful tip for you is try to be as natural as you can. So don't try to be overly technical or overly general, or I don't know, whatever, because it is very much unpersuasive, as you can see here. Yeah, the same rudeness is unpersuasive. This is something that you must remember. But other than that, you know, things about voice and tone and use of humor and emotion and eye contact, all of this are most efficiently executed if you're simply natural, and if you simply do not try to behave as politician or other weird things. Just simply try to be natural and try to effectively use your time, effectively allocate your time, and all of that will come with time. So this is my advice for you. Don't worry too much about your style. Worry more about what you are saying, worry about why you are saying this. Those are important questions, but not very much about how you are presenting your argument. Obviously, we will reward, very good rhetorical speakers. And if that's somehow it's your personal advantage, then go ahead and use it. And obviously you will get some, credit for that. But it is not that we are going to penalize people harshly because they do not keep an eye contact with us or something like that. Okay, now it's time for questions about rules and other, connected things. So if you have anything to what has been said, go ahead now. No, seriously, think about that. I'm here for you, not for myself. So there will be not much time during the tournament. Okay, if anything will come to your mind later, don't worry, you can interrupt and you can ask me any sort of questions you will have, okay? Cool. Okay, now let's go to the part 2. So, by the way, the plan for today is that firstly, we hopefully have consolidated knowledge of the format, and the rules are essential to win. So I hope that was clear for you. I believe those were the most important rules that you need to know before the tournament will start. Now we will go to the speakers roles, so particularly to the first speakers, and then if we will have some time, we'll dive into strategies. And I prepared only one strategy for you, because I calculated that we will not have time for many strategical tools, but still hopefully it will be useful. Okay, can you tell me whether you had a workshop specifically about types of motion? I need your answer, seriously.
I think there wasn't a workshop, but I could be mistaken.
Okay, that's very important information. So we'll, as I thought, we'll spend some more time than I was planning to have on that. But yeah, firstly, speakers' roles. And I'm asking this question about whether you had this workshop about motion types, simply because, okay, I will come back to presenting, simply because it is somehow that is defining, I need to put it again here, simply it is something that it's defining what the first speaker should do. And you cannot be a good first speaker if you do not distinguish correctly types of motions, okay? So as you can see here, there are 5 main things you should focus on when you are the first speaker of proposition side. It doesn't mean that in all debates you need to fulfill all those 5 points, but in most debates, I would say yes. So first of all, you need to introduce Teams line. We will discuss it in a minute. You need to define motion and key terms, and it is also essential to distinguish what is a key term and what is not. So for instance, if you have a debate about European Union, it is not a key term in a sense that you don't have to, oh, okay. Someone else has joined us. It is essential that you do not define for me the entire structure of the European Union. Or I don't know, you are not saying me what was the reason for formatting this particular institution. But it is strategic, for example, to tell me what are the interests of the European Union. And, you know, when you have a debate, this house believes that in the interest of the European Union would be like, I don't know, universal basic income or whatever. This interest of the European Union is probably a key term you need to define, okay? So there are things that everyone in this debate are going to agree on. So for example, yeah, like how the European Union looks like when we speak about those technical terms, but not everyone will agree in this debate what are the interests of the EU, because the opposition is going to argue against your interests. For example, if you're a proposition, then it is something you need to explain. Setting burdens, I will explain this for you as well. Offering a model, it is also a responsibility of the first speaker of proposition in a policy motion. And yeah, this is the same goes with that. So we'll discuss it in a minute. And provide substantive arguments. Yeah, this is the very last thing you need to focus on, but it is the biggest part probably of your speech. But without those first 4 points, probably you are going to lose the debate. And this is why it is so important, because you are somehow setting a ground for every other speaker. So it is a huge responsibility to be a first speaker of your side. Yeah, so, oh, no. The first thing first. What is the Teams line, okay? How it may look like. So here's an example. This house believes that feminist movements should integrate religious messages and institutions into their agenda. Clear motion? Any questions on that? All terms clear? Okay. So Teams line may look like this. In this debate, we'll argue that integration of religious messages will evoke the greater support from conservative people for the feminist movement and its postulates. In the first speech, I will do X. My second speakers will continue this argument and do Y. Our first speaker will do Z. Okay? So Teams line is basically something that something that is common for all speeches, for your entire line, as either prop or op. Yes, so you need to find something that that is in common for all speakers. So you're basically, you can have different arguments about how exactly those messages will evoke this greater support. For example, yes, because we will simply involve those people in our agenda, we will show how feminism can be in the same line with religious beliefs, how the very fact that we'll have some sort of cooperation with institutions, so with churches or with priests directly, can make us, I don't know, to be seen in a different way by people who participate in masses, or, you know, there are many different arguments for this very general way of phrasing. Yes, so this is extremely crucial because it clarifies for the judge what you are exactly going to do in that particular debate. And also never forget to, you know, introduce and announce somehow very, very generically what your team members are going to do in this debate, because I think it's a great habit simply to do that, because you make sure that if your third speaker will introduce a new material, that you somehow simply facilitated the way for that speaker. And, you know, if you will not announce it as a first speaker, then the first speaker simply cannot introduce anything new. So make sure you do this. And basically, team line is very simple. It's something, yeah, it should take you at maximum, seriously, like first 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute, but never longer. It can be even, you know, like 15 seconds. There are two sentences, basically. The first sentence that is simply somehow highlighting the general line, and the second sentence or sentences when you introduce simply what particular speakers are going to do in this debate. I think team's line is the easiest thing. So is that clear? Any questions on that? No? Perfect. Okay. So what is important when you are executing this first thing, so introducing team's line, is firstly, and thank you, Paweł Miłkowski, because it's from your workshop, is firstly highlight for yourself awareness of limitations. Yes, so you cannot save the word in 8 minutes. You need to, and it's actually relevant for all speakers. Yes, so you need to accept that you are not going to prove that your case is absolutely true in all cases, or for that particular group, even for very specific small group, it probably will not, you know, be so solidly made that, you know, it will not change the words. You can, in a debate, you fight for majority of cases, or for the most important groups, or for very, very specific, you know, very specific and rather small part of the word. So be aware of that also your entire team lines is also going to be limited, and that's absolutely fine. So do not try to convey like the entire debate in those one sentence. The other thing is that shared vision is more important than specific distribution of fully developed arguments during your prep time. So it is also the very important strategic tool you should take notice, because during your prep time, I believe there is a tendency for beginners to, you know, to fully develop your argument as much as you can simply, and to write down everything very specifically. And this is not your goal. Okay, during your prep time, you need to have this very, very quite generic but shared and common vision of the word you are fighting for in that particular debate. And, you know, as you can see here, strategic assumptions are not made on the run. This is something you need to clarify before the debate will start. And although making team's line is very simple, it is also absolutely essential, and it's somehow setting a ground for entire debate. So always prioritize this, because you can always somehow improvise how you are going to prove your argument, how you are going to select examples and things like that. But you will not make this decision about what we are doing strategically in this debate on the run. Yes, it needs to be clarified earlier. Okay, I think that's clear. And now we are going to crème de la crème, and we are going to somehow debunk what it means to define emotion. Maybe not debunk, but deconstruct what it means to define emotion, to set a burden, and to provide a model. And it differs. And before we will dive into that, we have some things we need to, I don't know, clarify or explain. Oh, someone else is joining us. Perfect. So we will have then people to do a drill. Okay, so possible aberration, difficult terms that you may hear during your debate, and that are very, very useful for you to know. So the first thing first, so status quo, literally it means the present state, or more simply the world in which we live today, here and now. And status quo is, for me, was extremely useful to somehow think strategically about debate, because it's very much most of motions, and it no matters what type of motion it is, simply are based on this assumption that we live in specific world now, and we need to clarify how this world looks like. So what is the status quo? Then we think what this particular motion changed in this world, and then we know what we are actually defending. Where is this change, you know, which we are defending? And the other side is probably going to defend the status quo, although it not always happens. Sometimes the other side also, I don't know, advocates for different solution to change the world or blah, blah. There are many possibilities, but basically this is the most important thing you can, I think, it is very important, very important thing to think before the debate will start, in what world we live under the status quo, and it is important for motions type to which we will come in a minute. So this house, burden of proof is basically the requirements that the topic imposes on us. So for example, what we have to, so it is to say, sorry, what we have to prove depending on how the topic is formulated, is worded, or there are many different phrases. Yeah, and those are things you need to know to understand types of motions, and to understand, because of that, you know, burdens and definitions and blah, blah. So now we are going to, oh, sorry for zadanie and task. So we'll start with short warm-up to make you more or less grasp the general taste of what are the burdens of proofs and types of motions. So here you got the motion. One more person is joining us. Here you got the motion, this house regrets organized religion. Organized religions should never emerge. This is basically what this motion is saying to us. It should never emerge, yeah. So we need to imagine the alternative world in which organized religion never existed. Religion in which organized religion is a system of belief and rituals that is formally established and systematized. So for example, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and all of the institutionalized religions are organized religions. So your task is simply to decide which argument is the best. So here you got candidate number one. Believing in a God is bad because it makes people fanatical, hate others, and start wars with other believers. So on our side, we save millions of lives. There will be more peace in the world. Yeah, so this is the candidate number one. And obviously, those are arguments for proposition. Okay, now candidate number two. Organized religion makes many people adhere to one value system, and communities often impose worldviews on members by force of persuasion. This makes the mass of people uncomfortable and makes decisions that are not in line with their conscious and beliefs. Okay, and candidate number three, religion makes people fail to fulfill their potential. They don't care about developing themselves and making the world a better place, but lock themselves up in prayers and faith. Divine dogmas often make them incapable of taking a step forward and at least saving their own child through a blood transfusion. Yeah, because there is one sort of Protestant religion that simply prohibits a blood transfusion. or as has often been in the case in history, opposing scientific and social development in the name of religion. The fact that their hands are tied often also makes them unhappy people, hostages of the gods they profess. Sorry, they never mind. Okay, so now please write in the chat which argument is the best for you, which argument is the most strategic, which argument is winning this particular debate. Okay. Anyone else is willing to share the answer on the chat? Quickly. Okay. Thank you, Ola. Okay, so you are absolutely right. So, yeah. So the first is very generic, yeah, and it's a very generic claim. It misses the motion. It's basically, I don't know anything from this particular argument, because like it's bad, it makes people fanatical, hate others. You know, it's very huge logical gap there. I don't know what is, you know, like how it is happening, how it is simply taking place in the real world. I don't know how they are going to save those millions' lives, like in alternative reality in which there is no organized religion. The third is nice sounding and developed, because there are, you know, many lines. Like, it's actually, I somehow believe that people are more devoted to praying, and therefore they are often less likely to be, I don't know, critical thinkers, and maybe alternatively they would seek, I don't know, seek something else and be simply better humans. And here it is where, you know, where is the difference, is that the topic clearly asks for an argument against organized religion, not simply religion. So this entire argument is basically about why people should not be religious, but, you know, I don't know how does it links with organized religion. And the second argument is actually trying to respond to the burden of this motion. So the burden of this motion is to prove why organized religion is something that the world would be a better place to live alternatively. So yeah, they are trying, those imagined people who are making this argument, they are trying to convey the argument why organized religion make people to adhere to one value system. So it is actually something that is characteristic for organized religions, yes, so that they have very coherent vision on, more or less coherent vision of what should be our moral system, that they are very much focused on communities, to like creating communities that have this one value system, etc., etc. So you were right, and this is exactly what is the burden of proof. So this is also something that the first speaker must convey in their speeches. So basically define clearly for me what you need to prove to win this debate, and that you are going to prove it, and that the, I don't know, the burden for the other side is something else. And this is something they need to face. Okay, this is basically what defining the burden of proof is. And now, to answer your questions, or maybe you don't have this question, but I will tell you anyways, is when you need to do a model or make a model, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, and when it is not a requirement. So it very much depends on the type of motion you're dealing with. And you need to provide model only in policy motions. And what are policy motions? I believe you have faced this motion before, because I think at least one, or maybe, yeah, one motion that was announced was actually a policy motion. Basically, policy motion means that the subject is asking for a particular change, policy, solution to be introduced in the world we live in. So you can spot the policy motion if the motion was worded in a way: this house would introduce, this house would ban, this house would penalize, this house would legalize. So this requires from you the formulation of a formal and technical model for introducing such a change. Yes, so this house would introduce taxes for I don't know, for rich people that, I don't know, earn more than specific number. This requires from you to say for me, to me as a judge, how exactly you are going to introduce this tax. Yeah, so how high it is going to be, whether it's going to be about 20% or 50%. You don't need to be very technical. You don't need to give me a specific number, but more or less that it is going to be a huge tax or rather a small tax, or I don't know, like how exactly you are going to deal with this tax. Who is going to, I don't know, execute. Yeah, so very much those people are very influential. They have many, they have huge capitals, so it makes them more prone to corrupt politicians. So how you are going to make sure that politicians are going to actually, you know, to take those money from people, or not going to take those money to their pockets simply. So those are technical things that you need to cover by a model. But as I said before, you only need to do this in those particular, under those particular wordings. Yeah, so be very mindful whether there is introduce, ban, legalize, and penalize, or delegalize, or very technical terms. If you are not sure, you can ask me or Ignacy, because we are going to be there for you to answer all the questions about the motions you can have during the tournament. You have the other type of motion, and maybe it will clarify for you what is the difference between the policy and evaluation and evaluative motions. So when you need to do a model and when you do not have to make a model. So evaluative motions are all the motions that are worded as this house believes that, this house, okay, demands very rare, it's rather this house opposed, this house prefers, this house wants, this house, okay, believes. It's again the same. So this house, here should be, this house believes that pigeons should intervene the territory of the independent Republic of the Sparrows, in the territory, not their territory. Okay, so as you can see, here you also have some sort of very technical thing. Yeah, so intervention is something that, for example, if this motion would be worded, this house would intervene in the territory of the independent Republic of the Sparrows, then probably you need to give me some sort of description of how this intervention is going to look like. If the motion is worded, this house believes that pigeons should intervene, it's asking you about something else. It's asking you about what are the premises for pigeons to intervene there. So you don't need to provide for me a model. You don't have to go into detail about how something will be done, in this case, this intervention. But this motion is asking you, is somehow assuming that this intervention is plausible, can happen, but the question we are dealing with is whether they should or should not, whether they have some sort of moral obligation or whether they have some sort of a rationale that are simply legit to simply land this intervention. Okay, is that difference clear for you? Okay, I will assume that yes. And the last type of motion, okay, here is the issue. There are, you can, if you would be more advanced, to somehow group those types of motion differently, but it is basically the most simple way to categorize motions, and it is the only way you need to know before the tournament will start. Okay. In the future, probably you will maybe you will face some sort of different categorizations, but this is simply the most simple one. I have to go. Okay, no worries. Thank you, Ryża. Okay, so we are going to the last type of the motions. So first-person motions. So here you have this house as the EU would introduce a common uniform curriculum for history teaching. As you can see, here is the difference is that if the motion would be worded, this house believes that the EU should introduce a common uniform curriculum for history and teaching. you then should somehow think about whether it would be good for citizens of the EU, I don't know, or whether some sort of national interests are more important than the EU interest, and those would be arguments in this debate. In that particular debate, you are dealing with arguments only from the perspective of the European Union. So it means that even if it is against the interests of, I don't know, National Party of Poland, it doesn't matter, as long as from the EU perspective, not caring about Poland is in their interest, okay? So this is the very important thing. So you always look from the perspective of this particular actor. You don't care about small groups or something like that if it is beneficial for the general interest of the European Union. Yeah, here you can see also that there is, as the EU would introduce, it means that probably it asks you to tell more or less who would be responsible for creating this uniform curriculum for history teaching, how this would look like, how we are going to specifically introduce this to the schools, how much time it will take, and things like that, okay? Okay. What time it is? Okay, we still have about half an hour at least. So let's practice. This house would oblige adult children to care for their parents when they are in a bad financial situation. I would like you to think about model for this debate. Okay, that's your task. And my question is, do you want to have some sort of breakout rooms, maybe?
I think breakout rooms would be a fine idea.
Okay. Okay. I need to find this option. Do you know where is it? Maybe it will be faster. Sorry, I always. Sorry, you need to give me a sec. Okay, so welcome back to those who are listening to the recording. We had a small break because I wanted people to share the ideas freely, and now we are going back to our task. Okay, so firstly, I will just start presentation again. Yeah, so the drill was to find some sort of a model for this particular motion and to define the key terms that are crucial for this debate. So this house would oblige adult children to care for their parents when they are in bad financial situation. So one idea that we've heard from people who are here now is that we need to somehow define a bad financial situation. And this is a good point because, like, you know, you can see how saying exactly that whenever a parent is, you know, is not meeting their basic needs, it's somehow a critical situation. Someone needs to take responsibility for that. Something that I would add is that be very careful, because you need to, from the very beginning, justify for me why this obligation should be put on adult children of those parents, rather than, for example, this obligation alternatively would be executed by the state. Yes, so be very, very specific. You know, whenever you are trying to define key terms, and whenever you are trying to provide for me some sort of a model, always to think about what is the world in which we are living now and what is this alternative world. There were also sort of very complicated, maybe not very, but some sort of more advanced things, you know, more advanced examples about what specific situation may be here. And something that I would like to point out to you, because everything was fine with that, but always remember that you can somehow use effectively the problematic examples for your site. And this is why generally the idea of the responsibility to provide model was created for. So for example, when you have this particular debate and you think about very problematic families, yes, so for example, when parents are poorly managing their resources, they are, for example, from alcoholic family or something like that, it is very hard for us as a proposition in this debate to think about why then adult children should be responsible for a bad financial situation of their parents. And something you can do here is that, for example, we predict a few exceptions in this debate that are fair. For example, alcoholic families, when or families basically with any sort of addiction, I believe that's fair. And those families, for example, would be visited by social workers, and they can somehow mark whether this family is poorly managing their resources or whether they do not have those resources at all, and make a difference. And therefore, on that basis, for example, define whether the adult children is responsible for a bad financial situation or not. And one more thing that is very important in this motion. You need to clarify the difference between the status quo and between the alternative world. So here, under the status quo, in the present world, basically, there is a pressure to care for the elderly. There is a pressure to somehow help for your grandparents or simply your parents whenever they get old and they basically are fully reliable on their own rent, to still somehow help them. So what is the difference when we live in a world where there is a legal obligation to do so? Who is not helping for their parents under the status quo? Who can start helping for their parents after changing the world and introducing this legal change? This is something that your model should consider, and maybe not model, but rather framework definition. And here you got also a clue that the model should consider whether we can talk about any legitimate exceptions. I think this is something that we already covered. And what exactly should such a care look like? So I think that was something that is directly connected to what girls were saying here. So that this care, so for example, a bad financial situation means that you cannot pay your bills for your water. It means that this care probably would look like paying those bills for the water, like making some maybe basic shopping or things like that. This is something that you need to clarify in your model, and this is something that is your burden of proof. It is something that policy motion requires from you to do. And just be very mindful about that. And as I said before, be very mindful what are the key terms and what are not the key terms in this motion. You don't need to, I don't know, very specifically define for me adult children. Those are probably just simply people who are financially stable, more or less, and are children of their parents. But it is something that no one will somehow, dispute in this debate over. So be very strategic about selecting what requires this definition and what does not require this definition, okay? What provides you with a strategic advantage. And so that was all about the first speaker of the proposition side. Something that I want to add for the first speaker of the opposition side, there is one more thing that this person is responsible for doing, is accepting or rejecting propositions, framework, and model. Because other things are, quite similar. So as the first speaker of the opposition side, you need to offer, you also need to introduce a team's line you need to offer your own substantive material. You should probably engage with the first speaker with their substantive material. So those are the first moments of some sort of an engagement in a debate. But this very first thing, so accepting or rejecting proposition framework, is also something that is going to define your entire debate. And it is crucial because only the first speaker of the opposition side have a capacity, or in more debating language, a fiat to do this. So, oh, there should be one more slide, but it's not here. But I can give you an example from my head, because it was something that actually happened for me during the World Schools Debating Championship. Our first rant was about that this house believed that government this house would introduce formal strategies to fight with gentrification. Gentrification is a situation when, for example, if you live in Warsaw, you probably know that, for example, Praga is a district that used to be mostly a place where people with low income would live in, but after the underground was built there, it started to be gentrified. It means that areas that used to be, lived by poor people are now lived by, I don't know, more like middle class people that want to live in some sort of alternative district, and old buildings are renovated to look more like simply new buildings, and those old residents of those districts are simply kicked out of their houses by, I don't know, cutting off their electricity randomly, or seriously very weird stuff, and seriously for sure not nice things happening. So this is basically the process of gentrification, and the motion required you to basically make some arguments whether the government has a responsibility to somehow deal with this problem, although they are more local one most of the time. So our proposition simply stand up, and the first speaker told us that they are going to provide a universal housing for everyone. And it was so insane for us, because, like, who has capital simply to do that? If that would be possible, why we do not have, universal housing everywhere? I want my house. I don't want to pay for that thousands of thousands. That our first speaker simply, just ignored that and started their own arguments without responding to this model. And we were penalized for that, and we lost that debate because of this, because we didn't respond to this model. I responded to that model, but I was the third speaker. So it wasn't my formal capacity, it was beyond my competences. So we lost this debate because of such a stupid thing. And because our first speaker simply forgot or ignored, I don't remember, to somehow respond to their framework, to their model. And it was something that simply, ruined our debate and ruined our chances to win. So be very mindful during the tournament, and be an active listener. The first speaker must be an active listener, because it is your only chance to possibly respond to other teams' framework and model. Okay, guys, I think that's all I had to say about the roles of first speakers and the rules. And now is the last part of our workshop. So if you have any questions related to this, to types of motion, to speaker roles, or to format rules, now it's the best time to do that. No? Okay, so the very last part, and so I think we will finish before 7:30, hopefully. So it's how to optimize your performance, tips and tools to improve your strategy. Unfortunately, we don't have much time for that. but it was something that was predictable, honestly. But hopefully I will be able to provide you some basic tips how to optimize your performance. And those tips are very, very simple, but they are essential, absolutely essential. So I divided this part into 2 subparts. And the first part is how to prepare to impromptu rounds. So those rounds when you know the motion, you will know the motion during the tournament, not before the tournament. And here we have 3 basic things that you need to take into consideration. So the first one is prep strategy. So how you are going to approach motion, in what order you are going to do what, how do you somehow divide your prep time into time for individual thinking and on team thinking, and somehow distributing the material. Note-taking strategy, a very short note on that actually, and communication as well. Okay, so impromptu. It is also something that you can, I don't know, screen, or I will later on the recording of this workshop will be available, so you can simply find this. You will find this on YouTube channel. So coming to the individual strategy, I think you should devote on that at max like 10 minutes of your entire preparation time, maybe even longer, even 15 minutes. If you have an hour, I think that's fair to devote for that at 10 minutes. So firstly, what you are always making sure is that you understand every single word in the motion. It is absolutely fine that you do not know a particular word. It happens, seriously, it happens a lot. Debating are very intellectually demanding, and sometimes chief adjudication team are using words that are quite sophisticated or very specific for a particular discipline. So if you have any sort of doubts, even, you will go to me, you will go to Ignacy, and you will ask us, okay, please promise me that you will do this. The same goes with prepared rounds, okay? If you do not know any sort of word, please Google it or whatever, or ask your teacher, because without that, you will not understand the motion that you will prepare for a wrong debate. Okay, but now to more specific advices. Firstly, you always start from finding the motion. So you ask yourself, why did someone set this motion? It is absolutely essential question, because then you will understand what is the problem you are trying to solve in a debate. Then you clarify motion. So when you know the motion, when you know the problem, you probably have some ideas how, by making particular model or particular definition, particular framework of this problem, you can then introduce a particular solution that is given by this motion in a way that will actually solve this problem, because that's the aim. Yes, you have the motion and you have some sort of an idea what to change in the word, because the problem is huge, the problem is demanding, and you probably need to defend a particular way of solving this problem. And this is why you firstly should identify the problem, and then clarify the motions. Then you think of model, definition, etc. Then you need to find a burden of proof. So basically what you should prove to persuade judges that policy is right, that claim is true, that claim is important. Yeah, so here you think basically about the requirements of the motion, what I've told you before. Then you think of clashes. So you need to very briefly think about what the other side is going to say. Yeah, so you as I also said before, you don't make your arguments in a vacuum. You are making these arguments in a particular debate and against particular team you want to win against. Yeah, so this is essential to also be prepared what the other side is going to say, because oftentimes it happens that one team is providing me with absolutely romanticized vision of their word, that they are going to solve the entire problem, that this solution is simply the best, without considering that there are necessary some sort of shortcomings of your solution. And what is strategic actually is to claim that, yeah, there are some sort of shortcomings, but we still think it is worthy to somehow sacrifice those shortcomings, sacrifice the particular group, sacrifice the particular impacts, because we have a greater benefit. And yeah, this is why it is essential to think of the clashes before, not to present for me overly perfect image of your site, because it is often unpersuasive. Okay, then when you have all of this clarified, then you can actually create the statement of your possible arguments. Right? Okay, sorry for that. I will make short break because somehow I don't know why my computer is not working correctly. And the last thing is main message. You can use this to quickly summarize your points for your teammates. But basically, in the part when you create statements of possible arguments, you also probably create some sort of, you know, other parts of your argument. But it actually may happen during your team work time. Okay, short break for me. Sorry for that. Okay. Next slide. We're coming to the end, I promise. Thank you for being here. Impromptu. Teamwork. And teamwork should take probably most of your time, but it's, you know, very much something you need to agree on. So first of all, essential rule, because it often happens that more than 3 people want to participate in a debate, or that you have different visions of what is the most important case in this debate. So what you should do is something that I haven't done, and I sincerely regret that, is decide who is allocating voice, who decides how you vote in the case of disagreement. You need to have the rule of underlying friendship. So it means that all of you are in this team and all of you have the same goal. And no matter what will happen, no matter which argument will go, you are still going to remain friends. And I know it sounds silly, but it's seriously extremely important, because whenever your teamwork is not working great, then you are probably going to lose, because you will be not consistent with your team line and there are going to be huge problems. It's absolutely essential that you know how to communicate, how to allocate the time, how to simply, you know, take care of this disagreement. Without that, there is nothing you can do. Actually, there is nothing you can then do in this particular tournament. It is going to be highly competitive. So the team that is simply managing own team very well probably has an advantage from the very beginning. Okay, firstly, verify you are reading the motion in the same way. So those points of like that you were working during your individual time, now you need to somehow, you know, discuss whether you have a converging version of the vision, how about what this debate is going to be about. Then you're picking arguments based on your conclusion from these first points. Then you distribute these arguments and the work. Then you create arguments. And I would say this is why it is more important to just you know, have just simply statement during your individual prep time, and during the actual teamwork, you then have actually again your individual time, but you know, it's after the this discussion that is absolutely essential. Then you are creating your argument. So you are simply writing why something is true and important. And sometimes it happens that you have some extra time. You can use it to practice your intro. Yeah, but I've never done that. I don't think it gives you much of an advantage, but it depends. Seriously, it depends on your individual needs, so do whatever serves you best. Okay, and now should be a time for a drill, but I don't think we are going to do this drill. But basically, you can do this on your own. This is very good motion to practice. So given the dichotomy, this house believes that animal rights activists should focus on the environmental impacts that meat consumption has in humans rather than empathy for animals. So what I would do if I were you is that I would try to seriously follow step by step the structure and check whether it serves me best. If not, modify your prep structure before the tournament will start, but you need to have a structure for your prep time. You cannot just go after reading a motion and just think about argument, because it's going to lead you to nowhere simply. So please, you have a 1 week more. Practice your structure of the prep time. It doesn't matter whether the ultimate argument is maybe most satisfying or not. You don't have to do any sort of debate to check whether it is working, I don't know, whatever, but simply spend this last week on preparing yourself to make sure that you have a prep structure. Structure is key, whether you are making your speech or whether you are preparing for making your speech. It is absolutely essential to simply develop yourself as a debater. Okay, so this is my advice, and it's very important that you have some motions that maybe will help you to practice this particular skill. Prepared motions. So here I would take a slightly different strategy, although it somehow also converge with in the impromptu rounds strategy. So create before the tournament your checklist. So no worries. Susanna, sorry, someone is leaving. So prepare the checklist. Prepare, for example, check whether the burden of proof. What is the burden of proof? Read whether the type of motion is correctly assessed. I don't know. Whether we have some sort of preemptive responses, okay? So it is actually very individual. It is up to your team's needs, whether with what you have problem now, and have such a checklist. And this is very, very helpful, I believe, during your prep time. Yes, so you don't only distribute your arguments and just, I don't know, refresh what you have already written down, but also check those technical things that are for sure on the place. Yeah, other things, verify whether you do not try to convey too much, okay? This is often a tendency during the prepared motions. I will take your question in a minute, that people have so many prepared that they do not have time to read it all, okay? Or simply to say this all, so rather do not read, but that's fine, but please try to be natural. Okay, and the last thing is that during the prepared round, it is essential that you do not forget to participate in the debate. Yeah, oftentimes it happens that people are so focused on their arguments that they forget to take questions, that they forget to listen to other side. And this is something you are going to, you know, this is going to be absolutely essential for the judge. So do not be so much you know, like simply devoted to what you've already written down, but be flexible, be open to simply change those ideas. Martyna, go ahead.
I have a general question about the tournament, because we get like document that we need. We need to take it on Friday, or do we need to send you via scan, via email?
Oh, honestly, I don't know, because I'm not an organizer. And I believe that Hania Pabish or Hania Sheremeti is responsible for that. So whoever wrote to you this email, you should ask them.
Okay.
I'm afraid I cannot answer that.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Okay, basically, that's it. Thank you very much. I wish you a very successful tournament and very nice evening. Thank you so much for spending this time together. Hopefully it was helpful. And if you have any questions, we have some time now, but I will stop the recording now, okay?